Okay, so just set it up. What are we doing here? We're
I just want to point out a couple of...
yeah. Let's show your face so we can see who it is. There we are. Here's Ben, all the way from Victoria, back in BC.
Sunny Toronto. Actually, it was sunny yesterday.
Yeah.
I just put my pressure tester on. Took the rad cap off and put my pressure tester on and pumped it up to 14 pounds psi, which is about double what the maximum system pressure on this engine is. So if there's a leak, we're going to find it. And sure enough, it rapidly showed up as being this little hose clamp. There was a drip coming off. You got a photo of.
We already have
right
a photo
here.
of right
this
here.
hose clamp, when I first came to it, was rotated down underneath, so you couldn't actually see the screw. But obviously, there's a clamp on the end of the hose.
Yeah.
And it wasn't totally loose, but it was just loose enough that it wasn't creating a tight seal. The thing with any of these little diesels, well, bigger diesels too, when they're running, you get a certain amount of vibration. So any of the equipment that comes to the engine will be subject to that same vibration, down a certain distance. And where it comes off the engine and goes to the boat, it needs to be firmly attached and not just sitting gently against something where it can vibrate and rub.
Right.
Hoses, battery cables, control cables, electrical cables, any of that stuff. In the back, where the exhaust comes off the engine, we have the riser there with the white lagging on it, and then there's a saltwater cooling hose that comes from the heat exchanger and comes around into the exhaust. It's rubbing up against the bottom of the cockpit.
Right up there, right up in
there. Yep, that's it. Right there.
Okay.
My light's shining right there.
Yeah.
It's sitting on there. So with the engine running, of course, you're going to get vibration. It'll quietly rub, and it'll be okay for quite a while. Then one day.
Okay.
Ideally, that hose should have should be replaced really, and an anti-siphon loop put in with an anti-siphon vent at the top. If you look in your installation manual on the exhaust system, it tells you all about it. So I would take that hose and run a hose from the heat exchanger. In this case, you'll go up into the port cockpit locker.
Yeah.
Right up in here. Yeah. So when you bring the hose from the heat exchanger up into this locker, come up as high as possible and as inboard as possible. So in towards the cockpit side.
Right in there.
Right in there.
Oh, so you want to go right into this?
I'd fasten it to the forward bulkhead.
Forward bulkhead, right there.
Right in this place.
Okay.
So you have an anti-siphon valve there with the one hose from the heat exchanger coming up to it.
Yeah.
Second hose from the valve going down to the exhaust.
Right. Okay.
There's this little guy here, which is the saltwater intake hose to the water pump. Same sort of thing. You can see a little bit of black marking on the bed underneath. Right there where the hose is actually rubbing on the bed.
What would you do about that?
I would just strap it to the side of the bed like this with a padded clamp.
Yeah.
And it'll just absorb the vibration in the last little loop.
Okay.
The only other thing is at the back there, right where the exhaust hose goes onto the elbow.
So that's where the white and the black go together?
The metal and the black right there with the two band clamps. Right there.
Yeah.
One clamp's good, the other one has been tightened up off the end of the hose, like the hose isn't on the pipe very far, right?
Yeah.
And the hose has been cinched up and it's crushed the hose.
Yeah, I get you.
There's quite a lip there, right?
Yeah.
So that hose is going to fail. One thing, I see you got your battery out, that's good. One thing I would do if it was me, I don't know if you have, is I would take the impeller out of the salt water pump, raw water pump, sorry. Little rubber impeller in here, which you should check once a year to make sure it's okay as part of your annual servicing.
Okay.
But when the boat's laid up and stored for the winter, the impeller's sitting in there with some of the blades are all bent over, and they'll take a set, and then they lose their elasticity. They have to flex to create the pumping action. And sitting there bent for several months, so they take a set and they lose their elasticity, and then you fire the motor up in the spring, and either the engine doesn't pump water or it doesn't pump enough.
Right.
And you might find the engine's running hot.
I see.
The old engine, the old Yanmar, turns a left-hand rotation prop, counterclockwise rotation. Used to be, some manufacturers would go one way and some would go the other. Now everybody's pretty much standardized on right-hand rotation.
Okay.
You can choose when you attach the cable on the control. Which way you want the cable to go to shift gear.
So we're effectively, when we're
when
going forward...
you're putting it into forward gear, you're actually putting it into reverse gear. The way the thing is set up internally, without going into detail, it's designed to run
forwards.
Right-hand rotation for forwards.
Okay.
And the downside of running in reverse for forwards is you'll wear the clutch.
Okay.
Quicker than you do if it's in forward gear, just the way the thrust is taken.
Right.
It's not good for the clutch.
So we need to flip the cables around and get a new
You
propeller.
need to change the prop and turn. And to switch the cable on the controller is really easy.
Yeah.
Quick job, no big deal. It's a 13 by 8, it says. Yes, you could take a more aggressive one. I'd have to look at my prop tables and see.
Are we going to get much more? I don't know if we
You
get
probably will get a little more oomph, actually.
Yeah.
It all comes down to how fast the prop is turning, as
Yeah.
to how quickly it pushes the boat.
Right.
And the new engine, the transmission ratio and the RPM of the new engine are not the same as the old engine.
Mm-hmm.
The new one, the engine actually spins quite a bit faster than the old one at max, and cruise.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it all comes down to the difference in the ratio of the transmissions as to how fast the propeller actually turns.
We could we could get a good speed at a lower rev with
Yes.
a better prop, and
Yes.
therefore save fuel.
Yes,
Right.
for sure. And potentially make the boat go faster.
Yeah.
13 inches is what you have is plenty.
Okay.
It would be a 13-inch prop again.
Yeah.
So the difference will be in the pitch.
Okay.
And the question there is, do you want to stick with a 2-blade or do you want to go with a 3-blade? The difference there is with a 2-blade, it's better for sailing because you've got one less hand, you're dragging through the water when you're sailing.
Mm-hmm.
The 3-blade's more drag. The advantage of a 3-blade really is just that it gives you more bite for manoeuvring. So for accelerating and stopping, you know, the 3-blade does a better job. Ultimate top speed, if the 2-blade sized correctly, it'll push the boat just as well as a 3-blade.
So that's the end of the lesson.
That's it, I think.
Well, thank you again for coming down. We really appreciate it. We shall give excellent recommendations to all our friends who want to buy new engines.
There you go. Sounds good.